Hi, my name is Gia Marone, president of Women Grow, and it's an honor for us to bring to you this important conversation, one that has been near and dear to our heart for some time, and it's taken us a while to actually bring it to this platform. But we've taken time to think about it and understand the in-depth conversations that need to be had on women from legacy to legal. While oftentimes these conversations are targeted to the men that operate within the legacy market, we often overlook the women and the important part that they play in the legacy market, as well as resources that they also seek to transition into the legal market. Women are faced with challenges and barriers that oftentimes men are not considering, or in terms of them being targeted into transitioning into the marketplace, women have to take accountability for time and time again. The most important piece is that these women are oftentimes working mothers in the legacy market. And so as the providers, and oftentimes sole providers for their families, they have to be very careful about how they're engaging, but not only engaging, approaching the transition into the legacy, into the legal market. And so it's an honor for us to bring these industry experts to our platform today to share their insight on how there are resources to help individuals who are looking to transition into the legal market. Feedback that we were able to survey from women legacy operators in various capacities. And for those who perhaps are interested in even segueing into a career in the industry and not necessarily business ownership. But it's time that we have this conversation, and it's time that women stop being overlooked and not targeted in terms of access to information, access to education, and resources. We have to protect the women in our industry. We have to protect the families in our industry. And we want to make sure that we're creating a safe space for women in our community. So I turn it over to Tanya Osborne, our Director of Community, who's been working tirelessly on the subject. And I'm really happy and proud that we're able to bring this to you. Enjoy, and please give us your feedback. We want to know more. We'd love to hear from you to learn more about what some of your interests are around this topic. We are taking it seriously, and we don't just want this conversation to end here. We'd like to be able to point people to useful resources that will be beneficial to their future. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tanya Osborne, Director of Community with Women Grow. Really excited about today's conversation. And as Gia mentioned, this will be the first of many. I had brought the concept to Gia a little while ago, really because there's so many women that I've met over the last years of working professionally in this space. And I've been in this space professionally adjacent for a long time as well. So I've had the opportunity to meet so many women that have been running businesses for a long time in this space. And I'm in New York, and now we have legalization. So the conversation is really around how do we help these women transition from the original or legacy market into the regulated market. So I am thrilled to have this conversation. And again, like I said, this will be the first of many. So I have pulled up some friends, some new friends, some old friends to join me in the conversation. We're really lucky to be surrounded by folks that have actually assisted in that process for many women. So let me bring up our guests. Our first one is an old friend, even though we look great, so we're not that old. Just let me get it set. Shirali Patel, she's an attorney out of New Jersey. She is also the founder of Blaze Responsibly. I'm going to bring her up. And then I'm going to bring up everybody, and then we're going to introduce a new friend, Miranda Weigler. I hope I'm saying that right. She works with our old friend, Jessica Velasquez from Indiva Advisors. Come on up, Miranda. Hey, Miranda. And then someone I recently met, who is an example of the transition. We actually met when Women Grow was did a partnership with Benzinga last year. And I'm going to bring up L'Oreal Alegrete from 40 Tons. Hello, ladies. How are you today? Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
It is my pleasure. Hey, L'Oreal, how you doing? Oh, you're muted. Hold on.
My bad. Hi, everyone. Hey, Tanya. I'm doing good. How are you?
So good to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. So,
hey, Charlie. Hey, Miranda.
Thanks, Ariel.
So I'd like everyone to take a moment to introduce yourselves. We'll start with Shirali. Just please introduce yourself to our community.
Okay. Well, Tanya, I love you. So thanks for having me. My name is Shirali Patel. I'm an attorney in New Jersey. Like Tanya mentioned, I have my own law firm, Blaze Law Firm, helping entrepreneurs get licenses in New Jersey. And then I also have a company called Blaze Responsibly, where I share a ton of free information and education for the community. I do expungement clinics, workshops, things of that nature. And I'm just really grateful to be part of this conversation.
Thank you. And Miranda?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I actually worked with Women Grow when I made the first transition. I had an early career in international academia and Fortune 500 consulting. And when I was like, I'm going to get into cannabis, Women Grow was where I went to find out about everything I needed to know. So now I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Indiva Advisors. We are a 280E accounting firm. I sit in Oregon, which is the industry that I've mostly been involved in, but we have offices in Las Vegas and support businesses all over the country. And I say 280E because cannabis is our first and main love, but we also have started to recently move into psilocybin as well. So we provide accounting, tax, and consulting work for supply chain operators. And I get to sit in between policy and growth, which is fun for me. So thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be part of this conversation.
Thank you. L'Oreal? Well, you're muted again, Mama.
I keep doing that because I got background noise, so I don't want to interfere. Okay, my name is L'Oreal Reddy. I'm co-founder and CEO of 40 Tons, a social impact cannabis brand, bridging the gap between BIPOC communities and the cannabis space. We have a lot going on in our brand, community involvement, our Cannabis Second Chance Cannabis Career Conferences is what we do. Helping community get back into the legal cannabis space by providing education, jobs, opportunities, and so on and so forth. We got a huge win when our other co-founder, Corvain Cooper, was serving a life sentence for nonviolent cannabis offense, and Trump's last day in office, he gave him presidential clemency. And so we've been on the ground growing ever since. We have products in a couple of states. And we are just shaking up the industry and coming from legacy to legal. And it's been an interesting journey.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So we're going to jump right in. We did a survey, so I'm going to just put it on screen so we can see it, really just to give like a high level, so that we can jump into our conversation. Let me grab it. So we sent this out to some women that I knew about where they were, and as far as what their reason was, and really simply, we know what a lot of the reasons were. Their primary one, let me get it. Hold on, I'm doing multiple things over here. I need a producer. That's what I need. I need a producer to do some with me.
It's just, the tech, yes, the talking is hard.
Listen, yeah.
To the choir, yeah.
So was for income, was for building a brand. A lot was education. A lot was really teaching the plant to their community. A lot was building a brand. So we know why folks are getting into this space, but we also know that they come across all different avenues of the space. We were able to find out that not only are folks doing, what people think, but they're cultivating, they're literally like developing brands, creating edibles, having shops. So the women are out here doing the thing, So I'm going to pull this off so we can jump more into our conversation, because I wanted to start with Miranda and Shirali, because you guys work specifically with like the professional services sides of getting into the industry. So I'm going to start with Miranda. Do you have anything to share particularly about assisting a woman from transitioning from the legacy market to the legal market?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is thinking about transferable skills and areas of the market to get into that may not be as obvious. And when I say that, what I mean is someone who, for example, has experience with cultivation could transition into the regulated market, not as a cultivator themselves, but as a bookkeeper or accountant in that. They've done it, so they understand the operations, but an ancillary service like an accountant or a bookkeeper doesn't run the same plant touching risk, and also might have a higher level of opportunity with some less restrictions in terms of compliance or requirement for capital or other kinds of competitive landscape. So thinking about what transferable skills one has to be able to offer the market, especially from those less obvious, specific supply chain touching elements, is a really important thing for people to remember, because especially for those who've operated in the legacy market, they think about the transition often as a one-to-one. This is what I did in the legacy market. This is the same role that I should do in the regulated market. When thinking slightly creatively, they can understand how to bring that experience and talent and important historical context, but also be able to offer new things or innovative things that might mean less personal risk, and might also be able to really add value to the industry in ways that women often aren't noticed, but we are doing the hard work and the real, basic parts of auditing or compliance or bookkeeping or that kind of a thing.
Cool. Thank you. Shirali?
So I definitely agree with what Miranda said. That's always like at the top of the conversations. It's like, what is your skill set? How can we transfer you over? Because it might not be what you're currently doing. It might be something else. But then I also have to remind them that this is big business and we need to build the foundation of what it means to run a successful operation in this legal industry. And a ton of it is compliance. And so when you're coming from the legacy side, you're not following, there's no rules. it's whatever you create. And so, we really need to be, I do a lot of education on terminology because it's so important. And I try to tell them do take your time, but I would appreciate it if you would read the regs and legislation, because the more you read it and over and over, at least your mind's coming across certain terminology or different concepts, and then you can have questions that you can give back to me. But I feel like it's so important for them to know the framework and not just rely on somebody else to tell them what the framework is or what the opportunities are. And so I'm really big on making sure that they're prepared for what they're about to embark on, because it's an uphill battle, especially for women and definitely people of color in general. And so it's about making sure that they understand that it's business. How do we build that foundation? And how do we become a compliant operator when we're not used to dealing with any of that type of nature?
And that's so true. My reference is in New York, obviously, because that's where I'm from. And New York is right at the onset. I think we've got 2 adult use stores in the state right now. But one of the things that the state is doing, because our framework is very social equity driven, there's a mentorship program happening right now that they invited legacy operators to partake in. And all they're learning, because you don't need to teach a processor how to process or a cultivator how to cultivate. You know what they're teaching them? Compliance.
Right.
And I have a lot of colleagues that are in it, and they literally when their eyes are rolling in the back of their head, because this is really something that they never really had to deal with before. It was you grew, you produced. That was pretty much it. So learning the compliance and the state structure, is a really, like, I'm seeing some of my girlfriends that are like, oh, I didn't expect that. And I'm like, yeah. So it's a big deal. So were the legacy operators that you've both worked with, what level of hesitation were they? Were they excited, or were they nervous, or was it a combo of both? Like, how did you kind of like help them with that process?
So
you start.
So definitely a combination. Like they're hesitant because they don't know how to display that experience with respect to the application. It's like, do we tell the state we were doing legacy operations or do we not? You know, like that's definitely the hesitancy, because they don't want to expose themselves to any potential liability or anything like that. But they're excited because they're like, finally, we have an opportunity to transition. Nobody wants to take the risk, especially women, mothers, etc. I mean, you're doing this to provide for yourselves. And so I feel like there's the excitement, but then there's also the hesitation. And then for me, my husband, I could say it now because he's sharing his story. My husband was in legacy. So I know what he had to go through. I know how his record prevented him from getting into the things that he wanted to do. And so I have a really soft spot for people who are legacy, because I know how hard it is for them. So I really try to be empathetic and compassionate and understanding and patient with them, that take your time, don't rush through this process. Like nothing's going to pass you, right? You're not late to the game. Because a lot of people think, hey, licenses are being issued or opportunities are happening. We see all this money exchanging. Like, am I too late? And it's like, it's never too late, you know, especially when you have a proper vision and stuff. And so it's just about holding their hand throughout the process and like comforting them and reassuring them that, you know, I'm here to help you and not to intimidate them, because most of their interactions with attorneys have been not the best. And so
right.
To like help ease them in. But I think treating them with respect and having like honest conversations and reminding them that we're there to help them is really what's the key.
Thank you. Miranda?
Yeah, I think I would agree. Most universally, the women that I encounter are really excited for the possibility of transparency that's included in a regulated market. Many of the legacy operators have been subject to harassment or economic exploitation, real struggles that, especially in a completely unregulated environment, women are more subject to. And so I would say I see more excitement from women legacy operators than male legacy operators about shifting, because they've been subject to those ways of being unsafe or exploitation or lack of protection. The hesitations that they do have are about the ability to afford it, especially given long waiting times to take a legacy business offline while you're waiting for the possibility of getting to the next thing without having a clear timeline, without having a clear process or appeals process, is a huge leap of faith, especially when your current business is providing for your family and your ongoing cash flow needs. And a lot of those same operators have fears about taking external capital because of the risk that could pose to them if there's a disagreement along the line or if there's something that goes wrong, and the possibility of losing what they have built in getting to that. So those hesitations are not around conceptually being part of the regulated market. It's the personal risk to their company, their operation, their employees, their reputation to get this capital, or like I said, to take their operations offline and hope that they'll be able to like get back to break even within a regulator's timeline, which isn't always the speed of business. So we have the whole gamut of people. We've definitely had people who we share with them what the reality of it's going to look like and the additional cost of compliance and the impact on a margin. And they've said, we'll call you. And then they don't call us, and we wish them the best. And unfortunately, we have responsibilities. We can't continue to engage. But on the whole, especially women are very excited about the possibility that this provides them for alternative paths to market that are safer, that, do all the good things that they want. The only fear is that ability to remain a going concern while participating in the regulatory function and all the costs that are associated while a thriving illicit market continues, being that first canary in the coal mine. That's a big part of their fear. And it's a smart one. It's a smart fear.
Yeah, no, it's a valid concern,
Mhm.
and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to start having these conversations, because in New York, again, my reference point, we had an opportunity for folks to participate in the first round of licenses, and the community was those that were justice impacted. And I was realizing how few women were in that pool. And not for lack of participation in the market, for the lack of having that justice impact. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I also said to someone, it's a calculated risk, because it's a different, this is where I want to tap L'Oreal. It's a different situation for a man to go out and participate, than a woman, because in reality, we have to, if you got a family, it's a whole different conversation, right? I want to ask L'Oreal, can you share your experience in the transition from the legacy market to the legal market? I'd love to hear your story.
Yes. I will share that. The legacy market, will take you back to the early 2000s, 2002, 3. In that market, you had to be a little bit vulnerable, right? But you were comfortable in that space being vulnerable with someone vouched for someone that vouched for someone, right? So then you were okay to put your money in their account and let it manifest, right? And I think having that comfortability with whoever was vouching for that person, you felt safe. You felt like, hey, my money is safe. I won't have to worry. I can pay my bills, right? And I think it's scarier now coming full circle in this compliant market where you're like, hey, is my money really safe with the government? The government kind of is up and down with what they want, don't want, what's allowed, metric, so on and so forth. So I think it's a level of being vulnerable to the new way of what this cannabis industry is, if that makes sense.
I agree 100%. So from your transition, like when was it yourself who were operating? Was it your partner who was operating in the space?
It actually was my husband, who's the other co-founder, and Corvain Cooper. So Anthony Allegretti, COO and co-founder of 40 Tons, and Corvain Cooper, co-founder and chief brand ambassador, that were in the legacy market in the early 2000s. And it was just word of mouth, that got them through, that provided for the families to eat and to live and pay bills. Right. So it's now shifted quite a bit. And speaking with lawyers and having the opportunities that we have today, I feel much more comfortable in my vulnerability to allow the government to kind of lead the way of how they want to see this market go, because I don't want anybody to go back to jail for this plant.
So what was the action that pivoted you and your family, your partner, to go from the legacy market to the legal market? Was there something that happened?
Yeah, it absolutely was. Anthony and Corvain were indicted. This was a 100-person indictment. And when the sentence got handed down, Anthony was sentenced according to the federal guidelines, which left me to handle the whole family, everything. So it's 3 children, all on me. Didn't know what to do, how to do it, but I am a strong woman of color that put my big girl panties on and did what I had to do. He did the time. I did the time with him. The kids did the time with him, visiting and so on and so forth. That's a whole nother level. But I still was infuriated by how Corvain Cooper could get sentenced to life and they're on the same indictment, right? I just had to revert back to it's the color of their skin, even though they had sort of parallel lives, like they went to school, they were doing things in the community, foundations, so on and so forth. But yet my husband gets sentenced lighter, and then Corvain gets the life sentence. It took us about almost a decade behind the scenes, champion with other foundations and legislation in Congress and things like that to get his story heard. And once we did that, we petitioned to former President Trump for Corvain to have clemency. And it was for everything. There was a lot going on at that time. They were storming the Oval Office. There was bombs being thrown, right? It was just sort of pandemonium in Washington, D.C., right? And on Trump's last 2 days in office, he actually signed for Corvain Cooper to have a presidential clemency. We got that call to get your butt on the plane and go and get him. And so I drove Anthony to the airport to go to Pollock, Louisiana, and he picked up Corvain Cooper, and we've been on the ground going ever since.
That's so, I'm so happy that worked out the way it did, you know? So my question to you, L'Oreal, was as you transitioned, what support was the most important to you in that transition?
Okay. The most I would say was the legal advice and assistance, right? An accountant, right? Because you have to make dollars and make sense of it all, right? Assistance to help with bringing everything full circle, banking assistance, credit, other brands that are wanting to join forces with 40 Tons to uplift social equity brands like 40 Tons and others. And I just think being open-minded and having the conversations of how can I help? Let me just hear your story, whether that person can actually give you action in real time, or they're going to tell somebody that eventually get you where you need to go. So having communication is huge. Yeah.
And so now as a legal entity, I want Gia help me with the question. So the way she had it worded was, as a legal business, do you still have fears and concerns that you have had as a legacy operator? And how that landed for me was, you know, if you operate in the legacy space, you're kind of always looking over your shoulder. You know, it's like when you lose a lot of weight and you still go to the plus size area, you're like, oh, wait, I'm skinny now. You know what I mean? So like, do you still have some of those similar concerns, even though you are now in the regulated market?
Yes, I absolutely have those concerns. You know, current day, the market is kind of up in the air, you know, so I definitely have those concerns of where we put our money, where we transition the brand to, where we license it out to, just making sure, you know, your accounts are paid so that you can go ahead and move your business forward. So yes, I have those real concerns that I think I'll always have those concerns when I think about it. It's just you kind of keep it in the back of your mind, and I just remain to be hopeful that things will just kind of even out to where it makes sense.
And technically, there still always has to be a little bit, because we're still not federally legal. So banking is still going to be an issue, I think, until that happens, or some banks just don't care anymore and they're just like, whatever.
Yes.
But I don't know that would happen, because we still have to, like, again, I'm in New York and they're talking about, you know, folks that live in public housing. They cannot consume. We've got Homegrow. They cannot partake in any of that because we're still federally illegal. So that is something that we always have to think about, right? Yeah. So Shirali, starting a business, legal or legacy, is very intimidating. What advice to our women viewers who may be in the legacy market? How do they begin to prepare for the transition into the regulated one?
So I think even though it's like a long, exercise, and it's gonna be a working document, you need to start with the business plan. And it could be like baby steps. Like I've been working on my one from Blaze Responsibly since 2018. So it's not done. Like literally, when I mean it's a working living document, like I just mean, and it doesn't have to be anything formal, but I tell them like, do a brain dump, like, consume however you want to, and like sit down and like start writing down all of your ideas, because when your ideas come to like, whether it's paper, you're typing them out, there's magic in that. I truly believe, because you're taking it out of your head now, you're putting it into the universe. And then little by little, like you're going to be able to see when you write down like, okay, basic steps is like, you want to form an entity, right? At a bare minimum, you're going to need to have a legal entity to move forward. And so the conversation is always around the name, because the name is so important, because you have to protect your brand identity. You want to make sure that your trademarks are available. So you do all these things to make sure that you have the right name. And then you want to figure out like, what is it that you want to build? Do you want the licensing route, or do you want to go the ancillary route? Do you want to build a brand? Like I saw with the survey, it seemed like people did want to build a brand. And so when you're thinking about these things, like flesh out who your target audience is, what are your demographics, what does your messaging look like, what is the look and feel of that brand going to be? And I feel like doing all this stuff up front is really going to help them throughout the process, because they'll be able to identify the weaknesses, because no one's perfect. As an attorney, I'm the worst with finances. My husband yells at me all the time. Like, I don't know money management at all. And you can't be a successful business owner unless you know money management. And so you have to know what your weaknesses are, so that you can build a team around you to support and supplement all of those different pieces that you need, because you truly can't be a solo in this industry and like be successful in longevity. And so I feel like writing down like that, whatever your plans are, your ideas are, your ambitions are, will help you figure out who do you need to bring to the table, like create that dream team, like start to reach out. I always tell people to use publicly available tools like LinkedIn to network and connect with other people, especially in this day and age. Like I've made so many good relationships through online, the people I've never even met in person yet. So, and people who are willing to help. And so I feel like doing the foundation is the most important part. And that starts with like really understanding what is it that you're looking to do? How do you put that strategy in place? And how do you find the people that can help support your vision? So I really think that for anybody that's listening, like do a name search. It's Google, you like Google the names, go on uspto.gov, search the trademark, just make sure nobody took the name, because there's like there's Canna everything these days. But doesn't mean that like it could still be available, but make sure you do like your research, and then really take your time and use free templates. Like you can find business plan templates online. Some of the documents, it is what it is. The states have put out public applications all over the place. So take a look and see like other business plans. And then a tip that I will say is all of these publicly traded companies, they have to file their reports. They have to file a lot of different things, their business plans, their stockholder presentations. And so Google, like Curaleaf, for example, annual report, and see how that annual report looks and see all the metrics that they are tracking. And if that's your goal, like you want to be able to mimic that type of style. And so use it for your resources, I think, that are out there, is what I would say.
That is so correct. And it's so funny because I have been talking to a lot of folks who are looking to apply. And as simple as it says to build a team, you're like, oh, get 3 of my good friends and let's go start it. No, that's not what you should do.
No, it's not a good idea.
L'Oreal's like, no, that's not what should happen. Because in reality, it's not, we're not going to the club. We're going to build a business. Everyone has to have a unique strength that I may not have, so that when it's like the piston theory. We all got to be working at some point. So we all have to have a skill set. And I'm seeing people build their teams, and the key people that they need, they can't find. Right. They're really looking for a key person that, in security or in like building a building, you know what I mean? Like HVAC and all that. And that's the time. And it's so, so important to do that. Your team has to be legit. So someone mentioned LinkedIn. I was never a LinkedIn person, but wow, LinkedIn is popping for cannabis right now.
Isn't it? It definitely is. I mean, you can find any and everybody on LinkedIn. I've reached CEOs that I never thought that I would be able to reach before, and now we're in business. So you're right, Shirley. It is where we all need to be.
And someone had a point about feeling too late based on what you were talking about, Shirley, and how do you locate state regulations? If your state and all the, Shirley, you could co-sign with me, most states that have a adult use or medical program have a state agency that handles that medical or adult use program. So you would look up your state and cannabis. And I that's pretty much like New York State cannabis, you're going to get the Office of Cannabis Management. New Jersey cannabis, you're going to get the CC something or other.
Seriously.
I know they have a bunch of C's in there. All right, Miranda. So compliance is a big concern based on our survey. We find that people don't understand what compliance means and may not have criteria to transition. Can you define compliance and how this can help those planning to transition?
Yeah, so we think about compliance. There's two sort of really important buckets. One is compliance, like you said, with the state agencies that you talked about. So in Oregon, it's the OLCC, but that will also have a trickle-down effect for your land use, which will be a local jurisdiction, or your building code, which will be a city jurisdiction, those sorts of things. So there's compliance around that, those buckets, filling out that paperwork, getting those approvals. Because we're accountants, we also think about compliance in terms of financial compliance. And for us, that's a really important one. I wanted to go back to something you said about the banks. Unfortunately, even if banks are interested in providing services, those usually come with high associated costs, because to remain compliant with their financial regulatory frameworks, they often have to do a lot of extra work. So as an example, one of the banks in Oregon that does it has an individual person who is trained who has to check every single transaction in Metric against the records quarterly to make sure that they are doing their due diligence for financial compliance requirements, which is about insurance and FDIC and whether they get to call themselves this kind of institution or that kind of institution. So it's important to recognize that there's both of those parts of it. I know when I got into the legacy market, into the regulated market, I really thought about the first part of the compliance, what the state agency wanted, what I needed to do for my local jurisdictions, all those checklists that those agencies put out. And I did not pay enough attention to 280E IRS code, to the ways in which my financial compliance would also have to be impacted. So making sure that you're paying attention to both of those parts in compliance is really important. Unfortunately, we find lots of times people overlook that financial, that IRS or that tax compliance. Similarly, how taxes are applied as an excise tax or a retail tax. Tax is a complicated issue within the regulated supply chain of like who it's added to and where it is, where it's applied and how that fits together in consignment relationships, et cetera. So we recommend finding accountants or financial professionals who are very experienced in this industry. Luckily, we have some more mature markets. And so people who've been able to be operating in this space for a while, because that financial compliance, when the IRS audits you, or you find something and have to amend 5 years of tax returns because something wasn't compliant, or the state revenue department comes and says, well, your retail tax isn't being paid or applied in the right way. That's a really important compliance that people often overlook, because the paperwork of my land use compatibility and my zoning and my fire and my exits and my security requirements and my cameras, those are so overwhelming that unfortunately sometimes we can get this piece overlooked. But it's also a place where engaging professionals who have experience in that is valuable. And really does pay dividends in the end. So those are the kind of two buckets that we think about: the financial, accounting, administrative documentation pieces of it, as well as the what do I need to do for the government to give me my license to hang on the wall to say I'm a legal going concern.
I agree 100%. It's so funny because I meet a lot of people that are like, oh, I want to get in the industry, and they may be an accountant. And my barometer, like, should I talk to you? Is like, do you know 280E?
Mhm.
Oh, you don't? Bye-bye, because you can't help me, so or you can't direct anything in our community right now. You got to go learn that, so I think
Mhm.
if you were an accountant, like going to accounting school per se, you're not going to learn that. Am I correct in saying that?
You're not going to learn that. There's, especially because it's evolving. So there's 280E. And then also recently there was a no change 471C decision around another piece of the accounting. So these are things that are constantly evolving. And most accounting programs don't recommend getting involved with cannabis supply because it's such a high area of risk, and accountants are so naturally risk intolerant that they mostly just try to stay away from the whole thing. So we have a training program actually that we train. We just kicked off today to train bookkeepers so that bookkeepers understand their responsibility against 280E. And then we have one where we teach tax professionals. And we recommend every operator, if you are speaking to an accountant, ask what is their 280E position so that you can assess their risk tolerance against your risk tolerance, because there are different 280E positions. And so how your business model fits with that accountant's 280E position is an important question of fit and your ability to have honest conversations about the evolution of your business model and whether this person will be able to give you the right information and support your position relative to what you're trying to achieve in the market. Because those two things, that risk tolerance is a really important place to be hand in hand to remain compliant, both with what you have to do by the state, what you have to do from departments of revenue and the IRS, but also how you can remain innovative and stay ahead of competition and illicit market operators who don't have to pay those same kinds of costs,
So true. And one of the things that popped up, we were doing a read the reg thing on my platform, and if you were an edible producer, let's say, there was a guideline, I forget, it's like food thing, a good something that you had to have to do this production. And if you didn't have it, you couldn't operate like to do food.
GMP certification,
That's the
possibly.
one.
Yeah, which is a second. It's a it seems like it's just a thing. GMP, like there's a but the reality is it's another compliance agency that you have to go through inspections and maintain, but there isn't like a right way. There's a making your business model match a regulator saying good enough in a way that's
exactly. So those are things that you don't think about, or you don't really have to think about it. And as you transition, it's like, oh, you can't go, you get stuck along the way because you have to address that issue. So just knowing in advance that you have to do that is a big deal, hold on, train. I live right off of a train track, so every time the train goes by me, I'm like, oh Lord.
For you. I love it. I love the subway.
Oh, it's because you don't live near one.
It's entertaining, Tanya, when you ride the subway. I was just in New York last week, so I understand it could be annoying.
It is. All right. So Laurel, is if someone chooses not to transition, are they protected under state law?
Okay. I may have to refer to Shirali on this one legally, but I feel personally that if you choose not to go legally, there's just some ancillary products that you're able to sell. You're not able to sell cannabis per se, but all the accessories, that you would see at your local smoke shop, you could go ahead and monetize that way while you're thinking and contemplating if cannabis sales is really for you. This market is not for the faint at heart, let me tell you. It is an entrepreneurial dream and nightmare at the same time, where you can win really big and you can lose even bigger. But I don't want to deter anybody. I definitely want to encourage people if they, especially women of color, if you want to get into this space and you know, you're trying to figure out, hey, do I have the money to start this or start that? There's small things that you can do to get started. Just to add on what Shirali was saying earlier about getting your name, making sure, you know, your name means something and that it's powerful, right? Getting that trademark, that's only a couple $100s, okay? Getting your website, even if you just did a one-sheeter that had your brand presence and logo, and then you ask for some mailing email address, right? You're capturing data. That's very important. Data is very important, as you had your stats up earlier when we first joined. Creating this buzz around your name and your business, right? Like social media presence is everything today. So as long as you have a presence across social media, going to the LinkedIns, going to the Facebook pages, going to the Instagrams, things like that don't cost a lot, I would encourage people to do, and to really deter you from getting and staying in that legacy market, because at the end of the day, it does not end well for you or your family.
Yeah.
Everything is on the line. Everything, you know, it's put at jeopardy. And we don't want that, because there's generations behind us that are reliant on us. And so what we're trying to do at 40 Tons is, you know, not only just build generational wealth, but help the people that are standing next to me and next to you ladies too, to give them the encouragement and the advice to move forward in this industry that they may have thought that they could never be a part of, right? So
I love that. Thank you. Shirali, just to ask you, are there any protections if you choose not to transition?
Not that I'm aware of, unfortunately, which is really devastating in a way, because every state, like New York talked about it, New Jersey talked about it, that they wanted a transition legacy and like give these blanket protections. It never happened, right? Yeah, I felt like even if you gave people a time frame, it's like, okay, we're legalizing now, you know, we're gonna give you like a year or 2 years to like get your shit together before we start raiding. I mean, it's like immediately, hey, we're legalizing, we have adult use sales and we're getting tax revenue, and New York's gonna hire more cops now to start, you know, enforcing, for example. And so there are sadly no protections when you're in the legacy market. It's just you're at risk. And then once the state, like I mentioned, is collecting tax revenue, that's their incentive. Their incentive is now, how do we maximize? And so that means putting out the legacy operators instead of transitioning them. And so it's unfortunate, but I don't know of any state that provides like real protections post legalization.
Yes, that is true. The alternative in New York specifically, again, we've had a lot of workforce development initiatives, which I actually love. You know, I think there's nothing wrong with working for an organization or company to build your chops or to be part of someone's team, you know what I mean? Or to just work for an org and move up the ranks. I mean, listen, everyone's like, oh, you could start as a dispensary worker. I've only seen a couple people go up those ranks. There are more jobs in cannabis than working at a dispensary. There's so many. And there are workforce. In New York, we've been building a cannabis union for the workers, which is really cool, you know? So, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. I get it, you know, but Women Grow is my job, you know? So it's a perfect fit. Sometimes there's so many opportunities, and ancillary is always going to be a big bit fit too, you know? Shirali, many women in legacy are working moms and head of households. Are they at risk? Are their children protected?
I do work with a few women who are legacy. One comes to mind that is a mother, and you know, she worries all the time because she's like, I need to survive. I have to provide, and this is what I love doing. And so there are no protections, right? Like I mentioned, but her skill set, not too much confidential, but she's a chef. And so I was like, you can make real money right now. I'm like, there's nothing illegal with you going to somebody's house, a private residence, and doing an infused dinner and you can that's a private fee, and you can charge whatever you want, right? Set your rates. But it's like, figure out different ways to do what you love doing, but in legal settings, right? And I had somebody who I can call a brother, Kyle, like he had served 7 years, and he came home, and his dream was always he wanted to be a cultivator. Like, that was his dream. He was hustling. And I was like, would you want to work for an operator? Like, because there's so many different jobs, not in a bud tender, but in the cultivation facility. Yeah. And I made a connection, and he ended up getting the job, and he's like, I'm living my dream every day. And even though he knows like that's just a starting point, right. It's like, you get home, and now what? Like, he's not going to go flip burgers, right? We can't do that kind of stuff. I mean, that shouldn't be expected of anybody, post coming out re-entry wise. And so he was able to, swallow his pride and be like, I'm going to go work for this operator, and I'm going to learn everything I can. And while I'm learning and making money, I'll work on my business plans and my network and my relationships. And so I feel like I always emphasize trying to find legitimate ways to make the capital. And so L'Oreal mentioned ancillary products. I always tell people, like, is it hard for you to make a t-shirt? Can you make an ashtray? Can you make a lighter? What is a product SKU that you can start to do, and do pre-order sales only? Don't just order 500 products and sit on it. Pre-order sales, build the hype, and see if you're getting orders, and then release the product, right? But at least that way you can see what's selling, what people are liking, and also collecting money in the interim, so that you don't have to take that much of a risk, because there is no protection. New Jersey does have a legacy to legal program, which is similar to like New York, like mentorships and things of that nature, but it's not a protection, right? It's kind of just
right.
New transition.
Yes, that's 100%. And hold on, where was I? This is a huge concern. Yeah, so it was the working mom part, and the part about potentially having a CPS issue with your children. We've had a lot of moms in community, and honestly, some of the ones weren't even legacy operators. They were just consumers, and someone made a call. You know what I mean? Which
That's
is
ridiculous. There is protection with respect to that, though. But I know New York and New Jersey both have law around that now. When you're as a parent, now they have the law. Before they didn't, post, obviously after legalization. But now both states do have protection for parents, and whether you tested positive, or if you're a pregnant woman and you tested positive and stuff like that, they used to be able to call, DIFUS or CPS on you. Now they have to have actual evidence that there was endangerment. They have to see some type of illegal activity. So the positive test results in your metabolite, for example, is not enough alone, which is a huge deal. Otherwise, people are getting charges of endangerment and of the welfare of a child. That's actually not even a record that you can get expunged in New Jersey, for example. So really? Finally have some protection around that. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so good. Yeah, because I have a couple of friends that have issues, and thank God they had their medical cards. Two of the women had their medical cards, and that's kind of what threw them over the edge, where they didn't have to, the children stayed home is the issue, but that's terrifying. That's terrifying, All right, Miranda and L'Oreal, are there alternatives to joining the regulated market? We talked about it briefly about it says, because many women are knowledgeable about the legacy, how could they apply their skills if they choose not to be a business owner, or maybe want to start a career?
Sorry, go ahead, Miranda.
No, you go.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, in this journey, this cannabis journey that I've been on, I've met, some really great people that represent really great companies. So there's Flower Hire out there that's hiring Engine. Both of those companies hire not just for entry level, but I'm talking like, G-suite, mid to upper level management, logistics, VP of sales, what have you. They hire for, those 80 to 120 salary ranges, right? So these are some great companies. And in addition to that, 40 Tons has our Can I Get a Second Chance Cannabis Career Conference that we've done 4 so far in 1 year, which is a lot. Both East and West Coast, and stay tuned because we have another one coming New York in March.
Oh, can't wait.
Yes, I know Shirley's been a part of it and supportive, and And Tanya, you and Gia have been super supportive. And Miranda, we got to get you on too.
We do. I'm excited to talk to you. Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, where, we offer this all-inclusive day, right? Where we bring all of these cannabis brands out that are hiring. They're giving interviews on the spot, and maybe somebody just came home 2 days ago and they need a haircut. Well, come on down. We have someone to give you a haircut. Oh, you need wardrobe. We have someone for wardrobe, right? So the thing that people are feeling deterred about getting a job, just where to begin, right? So we have a one-stop shop, if you will, headshots, resume building, resume coaching, brand resumes out there, write these out there. We have legal representation to help with expungement clinics, giving you advice, because it's not just like, hey, I have this record, here you go, clear it up. It can take some time, and people need to be patient, but we have everything that we think one would need to get started in the legal cannabis industry. So there are great folks out there. And of course, there's all sorts of events on socials, and then you can also check us out, 40tons.co, to see what's up next in events and where we're going to be.
Thank you. That's awesome. Miranda?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. I think our biggest recommendation is to think about transferring over time. So remaining in the illicit market once legal sales have started is a risk, but you also don't have to rush to bringing your own brand to market or starting your own going concern immediately. So the two things that I want to echo and support that I've already heard from others on the call is the business planning and finding employment opportunities in the industry so that you can learn as you're planning and bring some of those skills to market. So the in-home chef for an infused dinner, just as a fiduciary, please make sure that the host is the person providing the cannabis. You are providing the education and the cooking skills. That's what you're getting paid for, because then you're not trafficking at all. You are helping someone else cook with their own product. So thinking about those kinds of lines. But we also see there's a significant need for talent in this industry. So being able to join a going concern and work your way up by bringing your skills and solving problems is an effective way to both understand the market without carrying the risk of being the owner, and to get a paid for education while also being able to build that regulated market resume. In terms of plugs, I will also say we are always in need of accounting and bookkeeping talent, desperately. So accountants generally have a current unemployment rate of 0.9%. So those people who have high level numeracy, financial literacy, they get poached by tech companies, they get poached by law firms, they get poached by a lot of people. But accounting is a long-term, stable career set that is exploding within the regulated market. We like to say accountants are what make the difference because they do the documentation, the receipts, the papers, the tax filing every year over and over. And so, like I said, we have a bookkeeping cohort currently. We're training people who are working in this space, and we'll have additional cohorts in May after tax season for both accountants and CPAs who want to provide these kinds of services, as well as expanding this bookkeeping access. Bookkeeping and accounting, especially like I said, if you have some conception of the operations because of legacy experience, you are able to think critically about which buckets those kinds of transactions go into, and it's an ancillary. So it is safer, more stable. If you do want to launch a brand or a company, you don't have to be the first to market. You just have to make sure that your business model and capital set, et cetera, are attuned to that. So doing this work, which everyone needs, we're hiring, by the way, if anybody's looking.
It's exciting because I know that there are people who really want to get into the space.
Absolutely.
Because I always tell people, like, well, I want to get into the industry. I'm like, well, what do you do now?
Yes.
And if they're like a nurse or a doctor, an attorney or an accountant, I'm like, just
do that for cannabis.
Do that here. Just move
Yeah.
it on in,
Yeah.
because in reality, I didn't know that there were that much need for accountants. That's kind of exciting, actually.
It's critical. And it's one of the things where legacy operators have more financial literacy than maybe people recognize, but you've been working with money in a cash basis in terms of documentation and keeping track of that, making sure that accounts get paid, that accounts get received, all of those things. So especially for women in this industry, we like to encourage you. And if anybody is interested, please come talk to the Moxie Accountant or Indiva Advisors, because we do think that this is a really safe, stable pathway into the regulated market. And we are very supportive, especially of women who are interested in participating in that part of the marketplace. It's not looked at, it doesn't seem sexy, but it's really critical. And like I said, the need, that is the difference in a regulated market.
I love Moxie. I'm so glad that you guys are together now.
So that's the thing. So that's
awesome.
That would be my plug. Come join the accounting ranks. We'd love to have you.
Let me add something, Tanya and Miranda. For these Canna moms, right, that consume, whether they were pregnant or afterwards or still. So if they want to become a bookkeeper, this is, I want to say, a remote position. Is it not, Miranda? Most of them.
Yes. It is, and often can be done asynchronously. So while your kid is taking a nap, you can get in and do like a couple of hours of bookkeeping, or your kid goes down and you have a couple of hours at night and you can sit down and just jam through those numbers. Those are things where you don't necessarily have to work with other people. It's an excellent career path for especially working mothers. And like I said, it's a little bit removed from the kind of like sexier part of the industry, but it is critical and the need is very high. And it's something where you can learn. So we see in accounting, a lot of people start as bookkeepers right out of high school sometimes.
Oh, wow.
You need a good eye for detail, comfort with numbers, but a lot of people move from that towards learning more about accounting and then eventually being able to get a CPA license and move into those more highly paid careers. So that's
and
one of
our cannabis. You still work in cannabis.
You still work in cannabis. You're just auditing a dispensary SKUs instead of a Safeway shelf market. You're just looking at a different kind of data set. But
I love it. And then lastly, as we start to wrap up, I'm going to ask Shirali, and then I'll bounce around if you have anything. What are some resources for women wanting to transition that they could tap for assistance in that process, whether for business or for career?
So every state has, every state that's legalized should have workshops, free workshops, educational forums. I know New York's been doing a series of them. New Jersey has been as well. And so checking out like what your state's doing and getting that free education. Some states have technical assistance programs where they'll help you throughout the application process for free. And so if you're social equity, legacy, micro businesses, and you qualify, take advantage of those free resources. And then on the business end, I always plug this, but every single state has a small business development center, multiple development centers. They work in conjunction with counties, with universities. They will help you with everything from how to build a website to how to build a business plan. They'll connect you with vendors. So take advantage of like the free resources that are available from both the state agencies that are regulating and also from like these small business development centers. And then networking is everything. Like learn from other people, especially women. Like surround yourself with good women because you're always going to learn from them, and you just need that positive energy to keep you going in this industry where you're the minority essentially, right? We're competing against predominantly a white male industry like all others. And so I think surrounding yourself with good people and then take advantage of all those state resources. So SBDC is what it would be. So you just literally Google Small Business Development Center, closest location to you, go there, and then they'll help you from like start to finish for free with any of your business needs.
And some colleges, like I have a relationship with CUNY, and CUNY has a whole incubator program for small businesses and are offering types of support. I know here in New York, Columbia University has a small business department that they do a lot of free classes to support small business owners. So Harlem Business Alliance here in New York also helps women get their MW or WBE. So there's so many, you just have to really look.
Yes.
Like you have to really take that Google fine-tooth comb and really just go look. You know what I mean?
Lastly, there are professionals that offer pro bono services. Like I included, like I have 4 right now clients that I work with pro bono. So there are people who are willing to give back to the community, like find the professionals that want to work with you, because we have a duty and obligation to help each other out. So just do the research.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So lastly, for everyone, if I'd love you to share how someone could get in contact with you if they wanted to continue the conversation. We'll start with L'Oreal. How would people reach out to you if they wanted to?
Yeah, if someone wanted to reach out to me or the rest of the 40 Tons at 40 Tons brand or 40tons.co, or they can just email me and then I can put it in the chat if people wanted to personally send me.
Cool. I'll share it.
Yeah, and then just to add to what Shirley was saying, like, yeah, the pro bono and the low bono have been very beneficial.
I love that low bono. I never heard that before.
Because it's like, what can I afford? What can I truly afford? I don't want to insult you and say, hey, can you give me free? Always have my hand out. But if I can afford to pay something, I would appreciate that. Like I want to be able to pay what I can afford. And I love when businesses and professional people will allow me to do so. And I've had a lot of strategic partnerships that way, and I currently still do. So, let me tell you, there's some great people out there. Just to drop a few: Herbal, Sunset Connect, Blaze, of course, you guys, Women Grow, of course, you guys are great. Our accountant services, Mary Jane Accounting, Nat Pro, things like that. But I will drop my email in the chat in case someone wanted to follow up with me or continue our conversation down another path. So thanks for that, Tanya.
Oh, my pleasure. Miranda, how can people find you?
Yeah, if people are looking for professional services for accounting tax advisory, they can find us at indivaadvisors.com. We're on all the socials as Indiva Advisors. And if you're interested in learning more about becoming a bookkeeper or a cohort, so you can look at the Moxie Accountant. We have a free community for financial professionals who work on 280E issues. We run an office hours every Friday. So anybody who's struggling with this and wants to be an accounting professional to provide these services, the Moxie Accountant is kind of where we are. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on our website. My name is pretty unusual. I think I'm the only one. So you can email me, Miranda@indivaadvisors.com. I'll put it in the chat as well. And thank you for this opportunity. It was really great to chat with you ladies today.
Oh, it was a joy. Thank you so much. Shirali, how can people find you?
So if you want legal services, you can go to blazelawfirm.com, contact us. It'll shoot me an email, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well. And then Blaze Responsibly, follow me on Instagram, DM me. You can email me, Shirali@blazeResponsibly.org. More educational. I always help everybody. I really don't turn anybody away. And so reach out if you need anything. And it was an honor to be on this. Tanya, I love you.
I love you too, girl. Thank you. Shirali's doing my trademark. See, when you have friends who are attorneys, you can be like, hey, can you help me with this? So, and I appreciate so much all of you. I will be tapping you because my goal is really to do it in person with this and actually have women in the room and really be able to engage one-on-one. I mean, not just New York, but all the states. It's not too late. We have time. I know especially tri-state, everyone's coming on pretty much the same time, but this is really just the beginning. I've been here 8 years professionally, and I know I'm exhausted, but it's just starting. You know what I mean? You get to, we fought for legalization, and now the work begins. So I'm ready. I know we're all ready, and we're ready to support that wave of women that are transitioning. So thank you. She is always texting me. Ask L'Oreal. What'd she say? Hold on, before we go.
Okay, I'm ready, Tanya.
Wait, what'd she say? Hold on, I gotta get my phone. Ask L'Oreal if she had been faced with Child Protective Service issues.
Oh, you know what? Fortunately, I have not.
Thank God.
Thank God. But I have heard the war stories, let me tell you. But our kids are older now. So, the 21, 18 and surprise 10. So Yeah, and so, but I have not. But the
Good.
stuff that I have heard, I just am there in a supportive role for that woman, right? Whether it means I'm just on the phone with them at some crazy hour, or I physically go over to their house and babysit. And let me tell you, I have at like 7 a.m. because they had court, right? Like I've done this and watched their newborn baby for them. So I don't mind helping and being supportive if I can and my schedule permits. So that's what the type of person I am. I mean, I'll roll up my sleeves and do what I need to do. Assembly line, I was just packing 10,000 backpacks for Humanity Heroes for the homeless, and I'll be doing a grocery giveaway in South Central Los Angeles later this month. So like, I have no problem. Like, take the CEO hat off, take the mom hat off, and I'm L'Oreal rolling up my sleeves, handing out, hand warmers to the homeless or feeding them. So
Listen, I can't tell you how much I love that, because as you get into business, I am big on giving back to community. It's so important to me. So I love that you are not only building your own brand and your own business, but you are contributing to the larger community. Like we did a feminine care product, period product drive for my brand, for the Canadiva for Friendsgiving. And it was amazing. We got 2 gigunda bags of period products that we were able to take to a local women's shelter. And that just felt so great. Just felt so great to be able to do that and know that women in cannabis contributed to that.
Yeah,
So,
pay it forward, Tanya. It's like if you work with Shirali, it makes you have to pay it forward, and vice versa, right? Like if you work with Miranda, you're like, oh my gosh, she helped me with this bookkeeping nightmare. Like I've got to pay it forward. So yes,
we're gonna get some more bookkeepers in that area too. So
yeah.
I'm excited for that. I know people need gigs, and if they can work in the industry and they have to learn a new thing, that's amazing. I'm excited. Ladies, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Thank you for sharing your time and your education and your information. I just love all over it. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Everyone, thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Yes, thank you.
Oi.